Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Hattie Kalakash. I'm Director of North American Scouting for Dauber Prospects, and on today's show we'll be continuing with part 2 of my top 96 for the 2024 NHL Draft. This episode will be about the second round prospects, so pick 64 through 33, and we'll work our way up to first overall eventually as we go into part 3 there, but we're going to work our way up from 64 to 33 in today's episode. As usual, please take a moment of your time to like and subscribe if you like the content, if you like prospect stuff. I'll be posting a lot more regularly as we head into the off season here, but to get things started off right away, we're going to start at 64th overall with the prospect Terrence Smith, a left-handed defenseman of the Everett Silvertips in the WHL. He's 6'1", 176 pounds, and he's a really creative defenseman. I love how he manipulates opponents from the blue line, how he opens up shooting and passing lanes from the point. He's not the best skater, and I think he needs to work on his defensive game as well, but he's super smart, really intelligent with his decision making, and I think he could become a second pair defenseman with the right development. At 63rd overall, we have Noel Franzen of Färjestad in the J20 Swedish League. December 05 birthday. He's a 6', 180-pound left shot defenseman. He's a shifty puck mover with solid skating mechanics. That's really the foundation of his game. He's a real puck mover. He was a point per game, or just a point under a point per game in Junior 20 as a defenseman, including 20 goals that he scored in that season. Insane vision on him. He's got a really hard shot. He's got accurate passing, and what I really like about his habits is that he jumps into every rush. He's not the best defensively or physically, but I think he has a ton of upside and he's worth the shout. At 62nd overall, we have Adam Kleber of the Lincoln Stars in the USHL. He's a 6'5", 214-pound right shot defenseman, and my favorite part of his game, funnily enough, is his skating. He keeps up with opponents extremely well for his size, and his reach is ridiculous. I don't really see much offense in this game, but defensively, he's just so toolsy. He covers so much ice. I think he's going to be picked up way higher than 62nd, but we'll see how that goes down on draft day. At 61st overall, we have Tomáš Galvis, the 5'10", 154-pound Czech defenseman. He's a left shot D. He played in the Extraliga the whole season, and he's one of the best skaters among defensemen in this whole draft, not just mechanically, but also in the way he uses his feet to solve problems. He's proved himself at every single level this year and years before, whether that's the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, the World Juniors, at the pro level in Extraliga. It's always been an uphill climb with Tomáš Galvis at every level he's played. He's obviously limited physically, but he's so reliable and effective that I think he's still going to make it, even though he's a smaller player. At 60th overall, we have Maxime Mausset of the Chicoutimi Saguenay. He's a 6'1", 180-pound right shot, right winger, and a lot of folks have Mausset as their top QMJHLer, but I'm not as sold. He's a solid shooter, he's a solid passer, he's capable of handling board battles and physical pressure fairly well, but I feel like he's too linear, he's not really deceptive enough, and he lacks the footwork and scanning habits and defensive game to be effective in more than a scoring role. So I have my questions and reservations around Mausset. I still think he's a decent prospect. He's just not my top QMJHLer. At 59th overall, we have Ryerson Leanders, the 6'1", 180-pound goaltender of the Mississauga Steelheads in the OHL. And at one point, this was my top goaltender in the draft, but he ended the season as my third best, and I don't think it's really his fault. It's just the other two impressing me a lot more. With Leanders, he's incredibly smart, and he's a great puck tracker, but I think that the lack of size and footwork means that teams will be much lower on him than I am. I still see a starting goaltender in the NHL. He needs a bit of work. He needs to rework his game around, kind of adding some more footwork and being better regarding the way that he plays at his size, but overall, I think he's still got some upside as an NHL starter. At 58th overall, we have Luke Osborne of the Youngstown Phantoms in the USHL, and I have a whole video on him on my channel. 6', 172 pounds. He's a left shot defenseman. He's a September 06 birthday, so one of the youngest players in the draft, and he's one of my hidden gems for the 2024 NHL Draft. I have loved everything I've seen from Luke Osborne. He's an ankle breaker from the point with solid skating tools, decent defensive value, and offensive upside. He might slip into the 4th round, and if he does, that's a mistake in my opinion. There are just too many areas in this game that could hit that make him a really effective player. At 57th overall, we've got Ilya Nabokov, another goaltender. He's an overager. He's 21 years old, 6'1", 180 pounds, the same size as Ryerson Leanders. He played for Metallurg Magnitogorsk, I hope I pronounced that right, in the KHL, and his accolades are absurd. He was the KHL's top rookie in the 2023-24 season and was a playoffs MVP overall for the KHL. For me, the playoffs really sold me on him. Absurd saves left and right, a .942 save percentage in 23 KHL playoff games as a 21-year-old. Yes, he's 6'1", but he has better technique, the same tracking, and about the same smarts as Ryerson Leanders, but he has poorer footwork. He really relies on his positioning and his athleticism to make saves, but if he can work on his footwork, improve his ability to go post to post, I think we've got a really decent NHL goaltender. At 56 overall, we have Adam Yeko, the big right winger slash center. He's a right shot, 6'5", 200 pounds, played for the Edmonton Oil Kings in the WHL. And Yeko's in a couple of first rounds this year, but I really don't see it. He's big, he's a decent skater, he's got good hands for a big guy and a good shot, but nothing about his skill is consistent enough. He's got average hockey sense, good defensive value, but his bad games are really bad. Even though the good games are really good, there's just a lot of inconsistency there, and I'm not too convinced. At 55th overall, we have Lucas Pettersson, the 5'11", 170-pound left shot center out of Modo, an April 06 birthday, so pretty young. But he's one of the fastest prospects in the draft with so much energy to him. He can make plays at that top speed as well, which is really important for me. Regarding these faster players, we don't want another Michael Grabner who skates way faster than his brain can process. With Pettersson, his brain keeps up with his feet. He's also really defensively responsible. He's extremely mature in his game, but I don't really see much in terms of offensive skill that makes me think that he'll be anything more than kind of a third liner in the NHL. But still, he's a pretty sure bet to make it to the NHL to start with. At 54th overall, we have Carter George, the 6', 180-pound goaltender of the Owen Sound Attack in the OHL. And he's the top goaltender on my board. It took me some time to get there, but his Team Canada tape at the U18s really sold me. He's a puck-playing goaltender. He's not afraid to leave his net to stop rim passes and spring his teammates up the ice with stretch passes. Really, really good puck player. I also like his footwork. I like how aggressive he is on shooters, and he's a really good puck tracker as well. And I feel like he improved his composure as the year went on, and by the time he hit the U18 Worlds, I felt like his composure was at an all-time high. He wasn't kind of flailing around in net, not sure what to do. He was really kind of composed and calm, keeping track of the puck and making great saves. At 53rd overall, we have Marek Van Acker of the Brantford Bulldogs in the OHL. He's 6', 165 pounds. He's a left winger. Van Acker's really well-rounded offensively. He's a solid scorer. He's got good hands. He's a great passer. He's also really, really smart, and he's pretty quick on his feet. I like the way he separates from opponents in transition. He's also really good at shielding the puck in motion, which makes him really hard to knock off of pucks, but he's really inconsistent. His bad games are awful, and his good games are great. He's got the skill to be a middle sixer, but I think he needs a lot of development. At 52nd overall, we have Yegor Surin of Loko Yaroslavl in the MHL. He's a 6'1", 192-pound center/winger, an August 06 birthday, so one of the youngest players in the draft again. And I've come around a tiny bit on Surin. He was completely outside of my top 75 in April, but I've gotten a better look at him since, and I see the vision. He's fast, he has grit, he's aggressive on and off the puck, he's a great stick handler, and he has a heavy shot. I just don't see the defensive value, and his decision-making, his processing, and his anticipation are big, big weaknesses for me, in my opinion. He's not the first rounder that a lot of folks seem to think he is, but I think he's a high-risk, high-reward pick, and that makes it worthwhile around the 50th range. At 51st overall, we have Leo Salin Valenius, the left shot defenseman, 6', 176 pound. He played for Växjö in the J20 League in Sweden, and he's one of the smoothest skaters in the second round. He's got such a fluid stride and he uses it to push up the ice, but I feel like he's a lot less comfortable in situations where he isn't skating forward. At the offensive blue line, he kind of lacks deception and vision. He isn't particularly smart overall either. He's physical defensively, but he doesn't make the best decisions or reads either there. Leo Salin Valenius is a bet on tools. He could become a number 4 defenseman, but I feel like he needs a lot of work. At 50th overall, we have Leon Mugli, the Swiss left shot defenseman, 6', 165 pounds. He spent the entire year basically with EV Zug in the Swiss National League, and basically the foundation of his game, the cornerstones of his game, is his intelligence and his skating. It makes him a really effective puck mover, it makes him a really good defensive sweeper, and it makes him a really good puck retriever. In those situations, I don't see much fault in Mugli's game. The skill and the physicality, though, is not there. I'm sure a team or two will have him in the top 20 because he's really projectable and he has had a great season in the Swiss National League, but personally, I just don't see much beyond a number 4 defenseman in his game. And now we enter the top 50. At 49th overall, we have E.J. Emery, the right shot defenseman of the U.S. National Team Development Program. Now, this might come back to bite me. Emery's the best rush defenseman in this draft. He's got insane mobility. He's a freak athlete who crushed the NHL Combine testing, and his defensive gap control is ridiculous. The issue with him and why I don't have him as high in my rankings is he's not the smartest and he has little to no offense in his game. However, if he somehow unlocks some more offense, I'm going to look extremely foolish for this in a couple years. Without the offense, though, he's stuck on the third pair tops, but with the offense, he could become as high as a number 2 defenseman. At 48th overall, we have Cole Hudson, the other defenseman from the NTDP that's worthwhile, potentially as high as a first round. He's a 5'10", 160-pound left shot defenseman. And Hudson's the younger brother of Lane Hudson, who's in the Habs system. With Cole Hudson, he's just a complete opposite of EJ Emery. He's not the best backwards skater, and he doesn't have any physicality, but the offensive vision, the smarts, the awareness, and the skill are just so enticing with him. He's got a lot less dynamic skill than Lane Hudson, but he has more composure. He makes simple things look amazing. He's one of the best defensemen in the whole draft at finding a breach into the offensive zone, slowing down, and making a smart pass to a forward in stride. He's got tons of offensive upside, and his defense is good when the play is in front of him. As soon as it's behind him, though, he struggles to pivot to get back, all that good stuff, but I still think he can develop fairly well. At 47th overall, we've got Dean Letourneau, the 6'7", 210-pound right shot center from St. Andrews College in the U18 prep level in Canada, and he's unique. He's a surprisingly coordinated handler and skater, and there are flashes of real upside in his game, but I'm just not convinced that he puts it together. He's limited by his lack of pace and agility, and he doesn't have the skill level to play between checks. His habits are kind of raw, and his defensive game isn't polished. He relies a lot on his big frame. The good news, though, is he pushed up his NCAA arrival date by a year and will be playing for Boston College next season, so we'll have a much better idea of what his upside is. But right now, he could end up stuck in the AHL, he could be a top 6 NHLer, but I think realistically his upside and floor is somewhere in between. At 46 overall, we have Julius Miettinen, the center/winger of the Everett Silvertips in the WHL, 6'3", 207 pounds. He's Finnish-born, played in the Dub. We love to see it. For me, Miettinen brings a lot more certainty to the table than Letourneau, but he's also got some sneaky upside. He's a good skater for his size, with great hands, but the passing is really what got me sold on his upside. He can hit passing lanes really well, and he's got a great delay game. I like his chances of being kind of an effective NHLer, especially with his defensive game being pretty polished as well. And now at 45th overall, we have John Mustard, best name in the draft, 6 foot, 185-pound left shot left winger from the Waterloo Blackhawks in the USHL. And Mustard was 32nd on my board in April, but after watching more of him, I realized how one-dimensional he is. He's excellent at exactly one thing, and it's skating up the ice and hitting curl and drag wristers off the rush. But he's so good at it that I think his upside is worth the risk. His speed is ridiculous, his shot is heavy, and I don't see NHL defenders being able to stop him from replicating this formula in the NHL. He's also one of the youngest players in the class, and he has that dog in him, so I like his chances of being a really good middle six scorer in the NHL. At 44th overall, we have another great goal scorer in Justin Poirier, the September 06 birthday right shot right winger, 5'8", 181 pounds, playing for the Bécomo de Raccord in the QMJHL, and he is my highest ranked QMJHLer. Poirier's shot might be top 3 in the draft, maybe even top 2 after Cole Eiserman. I mean, his release just explodes off his stick, and he can score in multiple different ways. He's not limited to a formula like John Mustard is, which is why I have him higher, even if he doesn't have Mustard's speed. He's also kind of a pest on the ice. I really like the aggression along the boards and on the forecheck. I like his projection, and he has that elite shot that he can fall back on offensively when everything else fails. Not the best defensively, and at 5'8" with average foot speed, he's got an uphill climb, but I like him a lot. At 43, we have Tanner Howe of the Regina Pats in the WHL. He's a center/winger, 5'10", 181 pounds. And I had him in my honorable mentions back in April, and he hasn't really moved down too much. Howe is this year's Brendan Gallagher. He's on the smaller side, but he's a really good skater, and he's just pure energy and grit. He outworks everyone on the ice, he backchecks hard, and he'll dive headfirst into the boards and dig the puck out with his teeth if he needs to. He's basically been alone on an island in Regina after Connor Bedard left, and he's been their best player. He's got great passing skill, he gets in tight for his shots, and he's pretty good at scoring quote-unquote garbage goals. I'm a really big fan of this style of player. He's got the captaincy as well in Regina, so you have the leadership in his game as well. Really interesting prospect. Now at 42, we have Ben Danford, the 6'1", 190-pound right shot defenseman from the Oshawa Generals in the OHL. And the best way to describe Ben Danford is that he's like a weighted blanket. He just suffocates forwards along the boards. He's not even that big. It's just really all in the technique, the timing, and the experience that he has in defensive scenarios. On top of that, I've really liked the flashes of breakout passing and the occasional kind of more complex playmaking sequences. He's got enough skill to make it on his second pair, and he's one of the best shutdown defensemen in the draft. At 41st overall, we have Sam O'Reilly of the London Knights in the OHL. He's a center/winger, right shot, 6'1", 176 pounds, and I fell in love so quickly with O'Reilly's defensive game, but I really wasn't too sure about the upside at the start. But as the OHL season ended and the playoffs started, O'Reilly showed a lot more goal-scoring skill and playmaking ability than I thought he had in him. He's always been perfectly positioned, he's always got his stick in the right lanes, and he's really good at shrugging off of defenders, and that helps him compensate for his lack of speed. I think he's a surefire NHLer with the upside to be a defensive middle six center. At 40th overall, we have Luke Misa, a 5'10", 165-pound center from the Mississauga Steelheads in the OHL, and I had him in my 20s at the mid-season point, but I've soured a bit on Misa in the last few months, but I'm still very much a fan of what he brings to the game. He's got insane pace, he's always carrying pucks at top speed and overwhelming defenseman, but my main concern in the last few months has been that I'm not really sure Luke Misa is even half as effective at lower speeds. He doesn't really manipulate his speed to create advantages for himself, doesn't really excel in situations where he's playing in between checks, but still, the pure pace, the defensive game, and the playmaking upside make him really, really interesting. At 39th overall, we have Jesse Pulkkinen, the 6'6", 216-pound overage left shot defenseman who played for Yip in Liga, and I've got a whole video on him as well. For me, Pulkkinen is this draft's unicorn. It's insane how much ice he covers with that big frame, and he's ridiculously skilled too. He's daring and confident with the puck, and I've seen him pull off spinoramas in transition. Like, he is very confident with the puck on his stick. He's still not the best decision maker, but the raw tools are off the charts. His game also kind of cooled off in the final stretch, but he still has absurd upside. For me, it could be as high as the number 2, number 3 defenseman. On the flip side, he could also struggle to make it to the NHL if he doesn't improve his reads and his skating. It all really depends on how much he improves those two elements, but I still like the upside and the projection. At 38th overall, we have Linus Eriksson, the 6', 185-pound center from Djurgården in the Allsvenskan. Now, Eriksson's all about energy, support, and reliability. He's kind of like a faster version of Sam O'Reilly. He's always well-positioned, he's always helping his teammates by being a good pass option, and he keeps things simple with the puck, mainly because he doesn't really have the manipulation skills to do anything really complicated with it. He's also got great vision and was Sweden's captain at the U18s for a reason. I really like his chances of being a bottom 6 energy center with top penalty-killing value. At 37th, we have Henry Muse, the right shot defenseman from the Ottawa 67s in the OHL, 6', 185 pounds, and I've got a soft spot for his game. He's just so fluid with the puck, and I like how aggressive he is as a carrier while also being poised at the same time. He hits that balance extremely well. He uses his skating really well to defend the rush, but even though his in-zone defending and retrieval game aren't great, I still think there's enough here to see Muse develop into a second-pair defenseman in the NHL. At 36 overall, we have Miguel Marquez of the Lethbridge Hurricanes in the WHL, 5'11", 170 pounds. He's a right shot winger. And when I ranked Marquez in my 20s at the mid-season mark, he had just spent the entire last month and a half of that being one of the WHL's best players. The issue with Marquez is how inconsistent he is. Since then, I've had multiple viewings where Marquez seemed like he straight up didn't care. When he's on, though, his work rate and his skill level are off the charts. He will hunt you down on the forecheck, strip you of the puck, and then wire hard shots into the postage stamp. He can also deke and pass at a high level. Now, if I had access to the resources that NHL scouts do, if I could interview him and his coaches and his teammates, he'd either be a sure first rounder or way down my board. But with the info I have right now, I've got to rate him based on his top 6 upside and low floor, so 36 seems more than reasonable to me. At 35, we have Ryder Ritchie of the Prince Albert Raiders in the WHL. He's an August 06 birthday, so another younger player for the draft class, 6', 174 pounds. And Ritchie was forced to play a role that just didn't fit his skill set this year. He was kind of forced to drive his line when he's at his most efficient as a complementary forward. He's a good puck carrier with a hard shot, he's got good passing skill and great hands, but his reads and his foundations are what keep him out of my first round. He reminds me a lot of Alex Galchenyuk, who had the same issues as him regarding his skating habits that led to his knee injury. It's risky, but he's still worth a bet in this range. At 34th overall, we have Aron Kiviharju of HIFK in Liga. He's a 5'10", 165-pound left shot defenseman. His projection is risky, and there's a chance he falls into that Eric Brandstrom trap of kind of being too reliant on space to be an effective top 4 defenseman in the NHL, but still, the skating, the passing, and the hockey sense are just too enticing to ignore. I still think he's worth taking a risk on in the late first, early second round. At 33rd overall, we have Charlie Elick, the massive right shot defenseman of the Brandon Wheat Kings in the WHL. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, and he's got NHL level skating and physicality. And he can suffocate opponents in transition with that. He went from this ultra aggressive, kind of crushing defenseman in the WHL to a more calm and reliable player at the U18 Worlds, and I liked that version of Elick a bit more. If he can improve his reads and awareness, he's going to be an amazing shutdown defenseman in the NHL. But I don't really think he'll ever be a point producer. I'd expect him to be more kind of your second pair insulator, but he's still got decent enough upside and great tools to work with. And that wraps things up for our second round. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like the content, and make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss our first round, our top 32 for the 2024 NHL Draft. That'll be coming in the next few days. This has been Hadi Kalakash, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope I see you for my first round.